Today I make an exercise of catching a few magazines and read it and find out that there was a graph that seems to have lines growing up in at extreme, and it seems to be the fever because the fever, a person walking the street and went into a fever, and it seems that there are some circumstances that when a person, for instance me, are doing any kind of activities, suddenly I need to stay in front of a computer doing uploads or writing articles, but there is like instincts or a feel of needness, and I don't like very much because it's a bad thing to give knowledge without taking it before, and it seems to be programmed with calf instead of eating, because taking out some amount of air by means of the calf or the suddenly achieve discover that is equal to write an article without eating before the data. And indeed, I don't know if it's a good thing to ask for the money, ask for a machine, and then to sit down and operate all the applications, because, for instance, some years ago, I have only coins, and with these coins, I used to went into the cyber and open emails account, and it like very much to invent the name and the password, the domain name and the password or a username, and it seems to be a detective because my roommate asked me, but why? Uh, you have you have to have only one email account. Why it has no sense? And I don't know what to answer. And then I answered him, what happened is that it has give me this advice, Charles, because one day he gave me this idea, and I didn't know what to answer. Then I remembered the idea and answered him. What happened is that when I fill the form to open an account, I feel more sure of writing my name, my personal data, and it refreshed my memory because in those times, many years ago, I remember my name, but some numbers or some the postal code or there were some I had serious difficulties with my memory in the basic data. A part of my name, the other things were difficult, and to fill the forms, so many forms, refresh my memory continually of which is my name, um, the postal code, or the my date of birth. That perhaps it was a very bad thing not to remember the date of birth of oneself. I remember it. If my name and my date of birth, um, I remember, but I don't remember the sometimes the identifications or phone numbers. And when I began to feel sure of filling form, I asked for credit card and was to fill the form and to send it to banking homes to fill up the credit solicitudes or the asking form. And then I answered him that when I fill the forms, when he asked me, but what sense has to open so many email accounts in different servers with different domains? Uh, Normally, one person have one or two or three emails, but 30, 40, 100 emails, it seems that it's not a common thing. And then I didn't know what to answer. Then I remembered a trick and answered him quickly, a trick that Charles had told me. Because once he make a joke with if there were my daughter and my son, they were the four. We were the four, and they always were programming things, and they realized when I was thinking in open emails. Then I remember the trick that he said that time and answered him. What happened is that I fill a form and began a lot of difficulties. And after jumping that difficulties, it appears all nice and tidy and so beautiful arranged with green little letters, characters. You have a new account. And I remark, I like very much that something that is a mesh is transformed in a special card with a white card with perfectly arranged phrases and the name that I create. And more or less acceptable, but in the same, I was thinking about why I opened so many email accounts and began to justify, thinking that some persons are feeling very nervous if they have one email account, and this email account forget the password or is hackers or forgot the name or is forgotten the password, or perhaps, well, so many difficulties that the persons without the email account, and many persons the attempt of making another account make a question and say, oh, it is reasonable to have more than one email. And then these days ago, I was thinking, well, but that person may think, oh, if she has 100 emails, that I have two emails is not a bad thing. But it seems to be acceptable. But I also began to justify this thing and this another. And the real thing is that the cyber has to be discovered in the nature reality and the artificial one. Because, for instance, sometimes I discover that plastic bags means to buy something when I look around, or that other symbols following the idea that indeed I think that I am in only a time and a place, and that all the surrounding things are only the true only things that we are, and all the multiplication or the variation of objects or ideas are always variation of the same two things. I don't know what are those two things, but we always are oscillating in this one or this another, this one or this another. And after an amount of oscillation between two things, appear the third one. And that is the real thing, that what is a cyber in one of the two things is something that is has the distinctive graph is the monitor. It seems that the light is a square with light, and have for instance, many persons in the street seems to be amazing because the persons in the street think really she doesn't realize that what she is thinking is equal to this other thing. For instance, some time ago I discovered that some chain of thoughts are equal to put down the TV, and the most of persons always uh, have their encryptions or codes and are very used. For instance, Movistar sometimes when listen me to recording began to feel nervous, the cellular, because the mobile phone seemed to put nervous of listening me, that indeed it's equal to a record or not record, or stop the recording. And it happens to me all the time that persons put nervous because sometimes I am speaking an idea and persons realize that what I am saying is equal to an action that I have to make, and including the encyclopedia, um, reach the point that many persons reach of telling me now your internal machines will begin to shout, because it seems that the ideas that is equal to an action, I began to talk it, and after now making the action, and the idea is repeated, and now making the action that is equal, and so on. And then Charles always uh, begin to shout, because sometimes it seems that ideas or layoff of the object seems to ask for an action that I really don't understand. But let it be, perhaps it's all my life I never look for an equal action. Or perhaps, I don't know, when I was younger, simple the ideas come to my mind and I do the things uh, spontaneously, automatically. But after the remedies that I have to take by the therapy that I had in 90 years, after that remedies, all my things change in my mind. And recently now I am more or less recovered. Um, and it's wonderful because I don't like to say wonderful, or it's because it's like, isn't it wonderful to live in the open air? Yes, it's wonderful, but the wonderful thing is that after the remedies and all the recovery of the mental machines or the intellectual processes was something wonderful, that was to recognize uh, the lack of the, the intellectual reasonings and the abilities of speech, or the the mathematical calculus, or the understanding text and articles, that there were many aspects that really I could recognize that in another sense it is impossible. For instance, if I have not the lack of that mechanism, I never recognize them, because, for instance, I remember that in many years ago after that time of therapy, I was so aplastic or was so weak in my activities, intellectual activities, that to open a grief was a task. For instance, today or before that time, it was not a task to think to open a grief. It was a natural thing and automatically. But in that time, I have to think how to open a grief. For what uh, clockwise, counterclock, and a lot of tasks I have to think. I have to make an effort to do the things. But in that time, of course, persons also didn't realize. The only thing is that persons in general realize if she is better or she is worse. Sometimes she is well, she is bad, always in an attitude or evaluation. And it's normal because in the normal activities of persons, uh, it marks normal. But in ordinary persons, in the ordinary of persons, to evaluate it is well or it is bad is automatically. Evaluation in persons is automatical. It's very easy. It's well, it's bad. Classifications or opinions. And in this aspect, since I was very young, always was, always suffered very lot with that evaluations about persons. I never like the evaluations, the exams, um, to say this is good, this is bad, because but it was not a good thing because sometimes we lost the sense of the reality if we are always saying, well, it is good and this is bad. But we say, no, but poor is good. And with all the evaluations and tasks I have to recover. And I always have a question, or I am not sure that it's better to have all this, but it is like it's wonderful living on open air. But sometimes I think that uh, being a little less able or making intellectual things sometimes is less probable that kind of evaluation of persons because in that time that I was so weak in my faculties was very common to claim against the persons in general that persons don't help me, persons don't give me food, don't give me. But I couldn't distinguish among the persons. In generally, I claim against everyone. I didn't make evaluations or this person is good, this person is bad. I was always um, making things about what they didn't give to me, and that all make me to fault, to make faults or to make errors. But nowadays, for instance, I have not the this type of common sense because I think that I have recovered a lot of skills in my way, in my speech, in my evaluations, in the shoes, or but I am not sure that it's better than before because sometimes I remember myself in that time, in those times, that I was so angry with all. But really, I was a poor person in all sense. I have I have that image of myself that it was ugly in my presentation, well, like nowadays also, but in that time was worse and was worth a lot of things. But there was some kind of total dependence of the other and of God mainly. But I really depend of the other person and of God in the greater. And then in that time, God gave me a lot of gifts. And then it was a very long time. But in my heart, in my feelings, I was like that day that I was making the sudokus. That has a special of poverty. I don't know exactly what is, and I don't know if it's the same that it's wonderful to live in open air when persons want to take one off of some field. Say, oh, don't you remember when you didn't do anything for your skills, and it was wonderful. But it's really a certain thing that all know that persons that are always reading or writing or um, having activities with computers, with electronic instruments, or of the career of the person, and are always worried because this thing and this another, uh, all knows that that persons are different and are a little complicated or a little that no are not the because are always measuring what are saying and are always so like a coordinator told to me, it seems that in Hewlett is like in all companies that for the things that the 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 young person's told is that because there was in the groups there were uh, sheep, sheeps, sheep and pastors, or and there were common in the groups that persons uh, told things describing the company like she said. It seems like it was a watch mechanism or a perfect mechanism of uh, of watches of watches, and I imagine a lot of cage or wheels fronting one with another, and it was certain because it wasn't not allowed to do things that there were not synchronizing with everyone. But really, person seems to be robots, and um, I don't know how to follow this, but the real thing is that uh, when I was in Hewlett, I didn't reach that point of synchronization with all the machines. And here there are a person that are always making fun of me because I neither I know what was the numbers. And in Hewlett, all persons knows the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Each had acquired were pointed with one number. That person was the 3, that other was the 4, was a 4 or was a 9. The shirts with green lines was a business meeting. The girl with the skirt um, standing up in was um, meet with her friends, or well, there was a lot of codes and things, and I neither know what it was the persons, the names, the numbers, and that lot of codes, like in other companies and in the AMS, are always ensembling and are really very instantly. It's possible instantly to make a very complex things, because if um, 80 persons are all synchronized, when the the manager lifts a finger, the 80 persons, each one of the 80 persons, do different things in the computers, in the instruments, in the house or in every place, and in 2 minutes may be completed a very complex task. But in that time, it has no sense, or I was very concentrated with my oscilloscope and my printing balls or my calibrations, and that I was working in that place that was the same that to be in the sky, because I recognized that I was so proud to work in that company, that was so happy that I didn't know what to do. But all the other things I didn't like very much. And I realized that persons, when I think that persons uh, didn't like very much me. But I really like very much that company. And they couldn't understand why I like so much to work in that company if the things to do were very complicated and were an effort of many hours. Um, because the salary was good, but no, it was not so good. It was a normal salary, and I have so many. I have to spend so much money with the clothes because I have many troubles with with dressing me, and always was buying me a new trouser or a new because was broken, or a new shirt, or and uh, and traveling by taxi every day and so on. Then in balance there was not very convenient for me nor for my family, because my kids were of short age, and I I was working all day out, and I don't know if it was an egocentric decision. um, but after so many efforts, uh, they fired me, and I appeared at my home all the hours that I have been working from one day to another, and I didn't understand what to do. And then the therapy and all the things that happened after that, finally, well, I can tell the story. But it was really difficult to tell the story, and some of my sisters told the lawyers that I have not to be taken in account because I was really doesn't exist. And in that time, I didn't have identification, and it was very difficult for me to make some kind of tasks like diligences or business, or but the real thing is that it was difficult to my number of identification, and I was suffering a lot. But persons didn't understand because it was very difficult for me to speak normally. I began to speak and stop speaking because I didn't know how to follow the phrases because I forget the words. Sometimes today happens to me, but in English I realized that in English where Maurice it didn't happen, but in Spanish the much word there were many words that have been spoiled word for word, have been spoiled because it has been associated to crashing or collision situations that in English didn't happen because situations or were in Spanish in Argentina. And I explained it to a roommate, explaining that I wanted to travel to United States because I have discovered that I have a serious problem in my Spanish because it was very difficult for me to explain an idea in simple words and directly without giving many phrases and stopping the phrases. And there were prohibited, the words were going prohibited word by word. And today it happens also that words are prohibited, but I am a little more knowing what is happening. Sometimes for instance, I pay attention because in that in that time where the only was Charles that was um, helping me in his manner because he was a little rude, but he was the only person that seems to understand what I want or what I need, or if I was ill, or if I was well, or what person I want to tell something, or if I need a person to talk, or if what happened with my mother, with my sister. And then I told all the things to him, and he make arrangements in a way that I could escape. But the rest of the person didn't understand what I say or were very worried because I was dirty, because I was without this, or because I was not combing, my hair was a disaster, or if my training shoes, and all that things worry very much the rest of the person in that time. Then I can talk more than 5 minutes because uh, they began to feel worried about a lot of things because of I have the disorder at my home. It means that crazy, or I bad dressed. It means that crazy, or I am saying a lot of stupid things. Is that crazy? Or I spending the money in stupid things is being crazy. That evaluation is so automatically that um, don't know what to think. Then the only was Charles, but he was very bad with me. But he was the only person that seemed to understand. And I suffer a lot because I said the only person that seems to understand me is so rude and so bad. And well, then I learned a lot of tricks that he taught me, like for instance about lunch, dinner, or walking to lose weight, how many how many kilometers to walk in a week, or how many things, for instance, the freezer or the washing machine, the things that were more complicated for my skills began to disappear, and the freezer or the washing machine or to buy the food every day, day by day, and to ask for bread in shops, to ask for vegetables like tomatoes with coins, or to look in the street for food, to open the bags and of the trashes, and what food is good and what is were risk, to wash the hands with orange juice, uh, to drink wine, to drink coffee, or to to rest, and a lot of mistakes with persons. And then I began to realize why persons don't understand what I say, because he explained me how was the person, that if I say that thing, and I began to feel disappointed because he knew all the things about the old person and why the other persons don't know, because he was very bad with me and said why he understands all the mechanisms of all the persons. And I felt alleviated because Charles explained the persons of the building, explained all the things, and he gave me the opportunity of staying in my disorder without obsession, without worrying me too much, and waiting for a time that I can reach the keys of the order or of the cleaning and the habit, the routine. Because in that time I always listen so many advices, but I have not the tools or the keys to make the things. Then didn't serve all the advice. They were words that were lived in the air because I could do anything. And all that gave me many sufferings, that thing. And then I was very disappointed because he was the only person in the world. And I was disappointed because he was bad with me, but was the only person that understand what was happening to me. Then I began to ask security persons, and they give me advice that I have to be seen by other persons, that try make an effort of having meetings with roommates, with friends, unless four persons at least to call for a meeting regularly, that in a manner that it will be possible to know what is happening to me, what I was doing, what I was thinking, what things I am needing, what things can be done and what not. And I like very much the idea because I really like social events. I always like very much, but it was difficult at first and was very thankful for that advice because they gave me an idea, a trick of preparing a lesson or preparing a speech, something, to have a reason to the meeting because they were supposing that to see the faces persons don't want to see me, and that surely wouldn't accept. Then I began to prepare ideas and questions or some tricks to make the meetings. And finally, the most affordable was to ask them money, to tell that I was suffering so much and that I need money. And then it was the only um, advancing idea, but I didn't like very much to make a meeting to beg for money. But it seems that it was the only escape. And then I make the meetings and prepare some ideas, some things. And in the meetings, we talk about the team, the ideas, and other things. And after I reach with one friend to a point of giving a lesson at the university, then I ask for a room, and they opened me a room, but I was alone. But I was making an essay about an article and wrote in the blog. Or other they were to other places, and I don't know the key of getting a job, but there was very wonderful what has happened because I could advance in reading the 100 notice that from don't understand primary school book to read 100 articles or have an idea. It was a great advance. And reading to encyclopedia was the same, of the same security forces. Gave me that advice that I was going to the cyber to uploading videos and pictures, and it seemed that it's not so good idea like trying to write articles or to make the book and edit and publish it. That it seems to be a more security way of living than taking pictures or saying stupid things. And security also gave me an advice about my husband because they asked me if I was married and I told them that I was divorced. And they make me to realize that I didn't know what happened with divorce and that I was not sure if I was in law the divorced state was not in no paper. And in that time, the security asked me to go to the justice to ask for them if I was divorced or if I wasn't divorced. But the justice didn't want to tell me anyone and began to escape from me. Then I began to get angry with them. And then an old man, gave me a wonderful idea and told me, go to the civil register and ask for a document, the matrimony act. In the margin, it has to be written the divorce. And then I went quickly to in that days, and they were a woman that were talking by phone with another woman of inside the office, and I realized that they were trying not to give me the paper, and I don't know how God made the things to give me the paper. Where was the divorce written? And my lawyer, Marcetti, also didn't know what had happened with the divorce because all my family take the control, and there was a great confusion, and it seems that we were not divorced in the knowledge of the persons, but in the register there was the divorce, and my husband get married by second time with Lucy, and I have not the church nullity. Then in real I not divorce completely. But the security told me to clear my mind. First, they helped me to have an identification. And I have to tell them what happened with the identification. That it was very difficult for me because it seems to be a complot. And it happens to persons. I don't know if I am the person that Griselda also have some problems. But there are women, I don't know why, all persons don't know that have the identification or the states of marital states. All the things seems to be confusion. And really there were complots and I feel so disappointed in that time. Because I was ugly. I was um, bad dressed. I was dirty. Still today, but I can afford the reaction of persons. In that time, I couldn't afford the making fun sort of that thing. And the employers didn't want to give my identification. Make tricks like making mistakes in one number or changing the order of the numbers and a lot of things that disappointed me a lot. And I have to walk to Paseo Colón Street for hours and came back to home without anything. And all African males helped me a lot because in that time it was so difficult to me to to make the things because I have not money. And then the African males always were promising me that I have 3 million, I have 6 million, I have 10 million. And they asked me to imagine in real that I have that money. And what happened was that I need the imagination of having much money to make very cheap things. I have imagine having 3 million to make a housing of a whole cost of 3 pesos or 30 pesos. And all that mails that I read and I answer is helping me finally to get my identification.